Hello, everyone. Welcome to Kings Talk, presented by Cap City Crown. This is Tony. With me, as always, we've got John. It's been a couple weeks since we've last talked. Summer League has ended. The Kings have made an acquisition. Still, though, not a whole lot going on, as it is the offseason in late July. But yeah, John, what's going on? What's happening? What's happening, Captain, as they say?
Well, just like you laid out there, I mean, not much, which has kind of been the nature of this offseason. It's not to say it's been a bad offseason, because given all the circumstances, I think McNair and company have made some pretty smart moves, and they're still in a position to advance in terms of improving, I guess I mean. But it has been pretty bad for the podcasting world, I would say, because we took last week off because we just didn't see as much of a.
We took the last 2 weeks off.
Right. I mean, that's more than 2 weeks since we've recorded.
Yes. Yeah, it was.
Well, thanks for joining us, folks. We're really glad you're here, and
we're happy that you're here, and we hope you're happy that we're back.
Yeah, they're
ecstatic.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But yeah, I mean, thank goodness though, that we can rely on the fact that the Kings did make that extra move, like you said, so we don't have to just sit here and talk about what happened at Summer League, which, Summer League has plenty to talk about, but to fill a whole podcast with what happened at Summer League is...
I'll tell you what happened at Summer League. Colby Jones ruined the streak of 2 MVPs in a row for the Kings. Could have had 3 Summer League MVPs in a row, but no. Well, whoever. I mean, who would have been the front runner, I guess?
Jordan Ford.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
I mean, I think Kessler Edwards and Keon Ellis were probably the 2 most solid players through and through, but Jordan Ford was technically the lead guy for the team. I think he led the team in scoring.
Well, I'm just going to put it on Colby since he was, because Davion and Keegan won it the last 2 years, and they were the first pick of the Kings in the draft that season. And Colby Jones was our first pick, and he didn't win. So.
Yeah, there's no slack just because you got picked 34th, Colby. And You know what? You definitely don't get slack when your name's Colby. No offense.
Colby Jack.
I love Colby. Colby Jones, nice player to watch. It's going to be very interesting. Seems like a good kid. But damn, I can't stand that name. I would have rather had Derek Whitehead. Whitehead's disgusting, but Colby might be a little more disgusting in my mind.
Colby. I don't know. Just go with Kobe. I don't know.
I know. What are we going to be doing when Colby puts up a shot? He's going to be, Colby!
Colby!
But because it's Colby.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or because it's Colby and not Kobe, it's just, instead of it being like a fadeaway in the mid post, it's going to be like just a little floater. It's like, yeah, that's all he's got. Hopefully he's got more than that, but that was his most Kobe-esque trick in his bag, I guess you would say.
Yeah, and they're both 6'5", right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, Colby Jones, I think, is technically 6'6". When he has his shoes on.
They're pretty much the same person. Well, I think actually Kobe was 6'6". I don't know.
You know what? What's the difference? Honestly, a 1 inch difference. You're the same size.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because that's probably not even the real height.
Kobe was, I'm looking it up. Basketball Reference has him at 6'6". So.
They're the same guy.
If he doesn't have a career that ends similar to Kobe Bryant's, it's essentially gonna have been a failure of a career.
If Kobe Jones doesn't do the shaved head look by year 6, something's wrong because he's Kobe Bryant. And I don't know when Kobe went shaved head look, but
dude. And you want to know something even crazier that is related to Kobe Bryant? They were both drafted by the Charlotte Hornets and traded to a team in the Pacific Division.
Okay, Kings fans, strap in, because it's going to be so exciting to watch the reincarnation of the Black Mamba.
Yeah. Crazy. Wow. Yes.
He'll be soaring to new heights.
I like it says this. I'm on Kobe Bryant's. Oh my God. I'm on Kobe Bryant's Basketball Reference page, and I have the more info, I don't know, I clicked on that, so it says more info. It just says relatives. Father, Joe Bryant. And then it says uncle, and his uncle's name was Chubby Cox.
Wait, did Chubby Cox do something?
he played in for the Washington Bullets in the 82-83 season for 7 games.
You know what Chubby Cox's son's nickname is?
Tell me.
Slim Cox. Chubby Cox and Slim Cox. Take your pick. It's whatever you want. Colby or Kobe, Slim or Chubby.
That's hilarious. And Kobe's dad played in the NBA for like 8 years. 7 years.
I don't actually know if I knew that.
I did not know that. He was whatever. He wasn't that good. But he was decent, I guess. Like average.
But to be Kobe's dad? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, he was not anywhere close. Like, he was never an all-star or anything. Like, his career high is 11.8 a game. So,
how early in life do you think Kobe beat his dad? And also, just while we're here, how early in life did Kobe beat Chubby Cox? When did you beat Chubby Cox? Have you ever beat Chubby Cox? We're losing so many listeners. They're like, this is a family show.
Yeah, exactly. 20
of our faithful listeners have just left.
Yeah, sorry. This is wrong. We're just talking about Chubby Cox over here.
I'm reporting this video.
Anyways, so basically, Colby Jones, Chubby Cox. But let's talk about another guy named Nerlens Noel. It's good for me that the Kings got Nerlens Noel, because I have this thing where I usually try to link up with a Kings player and do a Christmas sweater, and I can, the first Noel right there. So,
except he's the 6th Noel because he didn't get drafted number 1 overall, back in 2013.
That's very true.
He might be the 6th man. You never know.
That's true. What does Noel even mean? Like, why is it called the first Noel? You even know?
It's Christmas.
Does Noel mean Christmas?
I believe so. I think it might mean Christ.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's one of the two. All
right. Fair enough.
Didn't you go to Catholic school too, dude?
Yeah. I just know the song. I feel like it's the only time I ever heard that word was the first Noel.
Noel?
Yeah. I'm going to just look it up now. Nerlens Noel. What does that mean? One time I was at a game where Andre Miller, if you remember when Andre Miller was on the Kings,
mm-hmm.
And he like crossed him and he did the splits. I was like, oh my God.
Nerlens Noel did the splits getting crossed by Andre Miller?
Yeah. Like
how old was Andre Miller when he was on the Kings?
Dude, like 38?
Yeah.
He was hella old.
That's hella funny.
I was like, oh! He's like on the ground. Like, that had to have hurt. Like, you're not a guy that should probably be doing the splits. Andre Miller on the Kings was 38. Yeah, I said it.
Oh, yeah. Correct. But I think Nerlens Noel has like Haitian roots, so I think the Noel is French, and I think that's where
that makes sense. So is Noel French?
I believe so. I'm just doing this off the top of my my cursory knowledge of the situation.
But the Kings, they got Nerlens Noel for 1 year, $3.1 million. I don't believe, and correct me, John, I don't believe it's a guaranteed contract until, I don't know. Do you know the specifics better than I do? If not, I'll look it up.
Well, all I know is that, like, it got reported yesterday that it was official, but, like, if you go on Spot Track, for instance, it still has it in purple, which means estimated. So
here, I'm going to look up the specifics. I thought it wasn't, but maybe it is.
Well, that's why I thought it getting, I think Anderson reported on Sunday that it was guaranteed. It had been official. It's official. Like, it's gone through the league office, I think.
Okay. I thought it wasn't. I thought it was only
like you said, Spot Track has it still in purple, which means that's the estimated value, which they have it at $2.02 million, which I thought it was 3.1.
It was reported as 3.1. So the Kings got Noel for 1 year, I think maybe 3.1. Who knows exactly? I mean, I think it was a great move, really. It was simple. I'm assuming that's the league minimum nowadays. It's not.
Yeah, it is a minimum deal for him.
Okay. And I mean, it's perfect. It works out really well. The Kings as good as Alex Lynn was to end the season last year, he's still, I think, a question mark. Trey Lyles as a small ball 5 throughout the whole year. Like, yeah, I think he'll be great as a small ball 5, but I mean, you can't go small every time. And the Nerlens Noel was a guy the Kings, or maybe not the Kings were linked to per se. Maybe they were last season, but I think it's a name that we brought up a lot and a lot of Kings fans brought up for a guy the Kings should go after for that big hole at the backup 5 position last season. And I guess, I mean, it still technically exists if we still have the same guys backing up the 5 right now. So he's an athletic guy. He's a shot blocker, not a stretch guy at all, but someone who is going to give you some interior presence, which isn't, like we said, something Mike Brown essentially wants. I mean, he does. He wants an interior presence. He doesn't want a shot blocker. Noel's kind of known for blocking shots, but he's still a good interior presence. And so it's, it just works out well. Hopefully he can provide some good defense in the interior and grab some rebounds and run the floor well. I mean, that's all you can really ask for him, and I think that's what he's going to provide pretty well. How do you feel about this signing?
Well, yeah, it's just like you kind of hinted at there. First of all, it's one of those perfect examples of the Kings were linked to Noel as soon as the report came out in I think it was December, when it was it might even been before that, but December, still fairly early in the season, and Detroit and Noel had reportedly come to an agreement to seek out trade options to move him. And then that never happened. He became the buyout candidate and then, ended up going to the Nets. And, without having to expend anything, the Kings just waited for him to come around and negotiated a contract with him. So it was kind of yet another example of how kind of patience pays off in not being overly ambitious or zealous about a particular guy. Because we saw that with Duarte. I mean, that's probably a little bit more of an extreme example because he was a guy that was untouchable. And then you end up pretty much getting him for, from the discount bin at the grocery store. But still, Noel kind of fits that bill. And I think we were talking, Len mixed with Lyles as a small 5. If you could somehow fill in the gaps between that, because Len, he moves pretty well for his size, but what Noel's going to give you, he's going to give you that interior shot blocking presence, but he moves laterally extremely well. And he's just quicker, and I think you're going to have more of a chance. I'd much rather, and I don't think anybody's going to argue with me on this. This seems obvious to anybody that can just look at the guys without them, without ever having watched them play, just looking at their body types and whatnot. I would much rather, and everybody would much rather have Noel switch on to a guy than Len. And Noel might be able to give you some element of that. I mean, he's 29. He's not the freshest his body's ever been, but he's going to give you something a little different in terms of being bigger than Lyles, but about the same height as Len, the big, tall, vertical, imposing presence, but still slim and athletic and mobile. So I think you're getting with Len, Noel, and Lyles, you have something different with each of them. They're not the same mold of player. They differentiate in ways that you can kind of go off and you need to stretch it out and space the floor. You go with Lyles, Mm-hmm. The differentiations between Len and Noel kind of just come down to mobility, I guess. And it's not even like Len is immobile compared to what I thought of him 8 months ago.
when
he wasn't playing.
Yeah, at all.
Any sample size. I'm just I guess he just doesn't have anything anymore.
I know. I like how he just didn't play at all last year until the last 2 weeks, and we signed him.
I know. That's why I always feel kind of reluctant to call it a hole at the backup 5, because I'm was it a hole? There was a mound of dirt there that they could have filled it with all year long, And Alex Len. That's weird.
It was, and I don't know, I'm forgetting this already, but was that a 2-year deal with Len he was on the team the last 2 seasons?
Yeah, that was the second. Last season was the second of a 2-year deal.
And he just signed a 1-year or 2-year deal?
I think it was a 1-year deal.
Okay, I believe so as well. I just don't remember.
$3.2 million or something.
Yeah. Well, he's making 0.1 more million than Noel. He's better. He should be the the main backup.
I think Len, for continuity's sake, technically probably has a little bit of a leg up on him on that regard. But like I said, Len and Noel bring different things to the table. It may become very much matchups based. But yeah, one of the things that's interesting is the center group now is really like satisfactory, I would say. And I think, now I guess, because last season we were talking about the center rotation with the idea of, oh, you're going to have Sabonis, Rashawn Holmes, and then Alex Len as a third guy. Like, that's going to be the greatest positional grouping on the team, on the roster. It's going to be incredible. And that quickly fell on its face. And then kind of recouped with Alex Len's kind of, I wouldn't call it a resurgence because he didn't he didn't return from anything. He just showed up finally in terms of Mike Brown putting him in 8 games left in the regular season. So I don't know. I guess my question is like, how similar do you feel to the Kings at the center position on paper now compared to a year ago? Like, do you think it's better, the same? Is it more realistic? Was last year more of a pipe dream in hindsight? I mean, what do you think?
I mean, it's hard to compare just because, like, going into last season, it's like, oh my God, Rashawn Holmes as your backup 5. It's like, whoa. Like, on paper, that sounded amazing. Clearly, it's not. I don't feel as good, I guess. Like, if I was like, if you had me last year at this time and you had like my emotions, like having Sabonis and Holmes, and then you had my emotions like compared to now with Sabonis and Noel, because I'm going to assume Noel is going to be the primary backup 5 personally. He just seems like he might fit better, unless Alex Len can really just kind of just go in and play how he was playing to end the season last year. I was more excited last year for sure because Holmes seemed like the better backup. But knowing what I know now, I suppose, like, I'm a lot happier. Well, not a lot happier, but I mean, it's nice that we could finally get rid of Holmes and get a decent backup in Noel, a guy who kind of fit what we were looking for. And almost like is kind of Rashawn Holmes-esque. I remember when the Kings were trying to re-sign Rashawn Holmes a couple seasons ago. I think like a guy that was in the back of everyone's mind was Noel if we couldn't get Holmes, because he had a good little stint on the Knicks. And I think the Knicks ended up re-signing him as well. But he's just an interior guy. He's not going to stretch the floor. He's got a decent little mid-range game as well. Like Holmes, not like, I don't think he like shoots jump shots, but he can put up some little floaters as well around the rim at a high percentage. So he seemed like a nice little backup to Holmes in case we couldn't get him, and now we have him. Yeah, it's been a couple years like it has for Holmes, and they probably have declined since then, but we got him now, kind of like you said. We could have, got him last year and maybe gave up some things for him, but now we got him at a minimum deal as a backup role to Sabonis. Like, I think him going in for 13 minutes, 14 minutes a game, and maybe less if it's like Lyles or Len getting those minutes. I think he's perfect for the role, really, and more suited than Rashawn Holmes was, obviously.
Yeah, I think the one thing, I agree with you on the whole thing, because it's hard to ignore the fact that there were so many reasons to be high on the center rotation a year ago. But the one thing that kind of makes it better, the one thing that you can make an argument like, no, you should be more excited now than you were a year ago, because how much money are you spending at the center position?
True.
Just looking at the backups, you're spending far less money there at center depth, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really something to be happy about. And then on Noel's jump shooting, I think when he was playing with Detroit, he put up a few threes just because it's like, what the hell? And I think he knocked down 1 or 2. Like, you can find, he didn't take very many field goal attempts as it was. So you can go on NBA.com and watch all of them. I don't expect him to be stretching the floor either, but I know that he took a fair amount of like mid-range jump shots.
Okay,
not like
he did.
push shots or little floaters with Detroit. And again, that might have had to do with just his kind of placement and ties in terms of long-term with the team. So it's just like, hey, show everybody what you got in your bag, maybe. But so I don't know how much he'll actually use it, but Noel might be, obviously Lyles is the best jump shooter out of guys that can man the 5, but Noel could be putting himself in a position to have a little bit of a mid-range game or something. Again, I don't know how much that'll get used, but guys might give it to you. Look at Sabonis.
I'm on Nerlens Noel. I'm on his Basketball Reference, and it has nicknames. If you're ever on Basketball Reference, it'll like say their name and then nickname. And one of his nickname is the Nerlens Wall. So funny.
Why though? That thing fell.
That's hilarious. I'm definitely going to use that. I don't care if it fell. It's just too perfect. The Nerlens Wall. All right. But yeah, I mean, King Shan should be maybe not like ecstatic, but I mean, it's definitely a good pickup. I mean, it's always hard, I guess, to get excited about a backup five, unless maybe it was Naz Reid. But
Hey, you led this off by saying just all the mentioning and kind of highlighting all the troubles they had at this role last season. So maybe ecstatic's not the right word, but people should definitely be, happy and satisfied with this. Because it's just like, it's exactly what we were talking about. It's like, man, if they could just bolster the center with just like another guy that can maybe compete for minutes or at least kind of really hold down a third spot, quote unquote.
mm-hmm.
And they more than did that with Noel. And like you said, minimum deal. What more could you ask for?
Yeah, exactly. So there's that. Noel on the team got 3.5 centers. I'm going to call Lyles a half.
That's fair.
Because, I mean, I think, honestly, he's going to be splitting time between the 4 and the 5, depending on that small ball lineup. And clearly, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I'm very interested to see Lyles roll this year with Vezenkov and with Noel and Len on the team now and kind of see where he fits in. I mean, he was so good last year. It's hard to imagine that he just loses like rotation minutes. But I don't know. Like Mike Brown, he has a good problem on his hands. Honestly,
well, yeah. Well, now he's on both sides of Lyles at the 4 and the 5. He's got guys that are there to take over, and that way you can maximize Lyles' versatility.
True.
So Vezenkov's there if you want to play Lyles at the 5. Noel's there if you want to keep Lyles playing the 4. Yada yada. So it's just like that's what makes this offseason so promising, because like some people are like, oh, they're just bringing back the same team. Like that's not exciting. But it's like, no, they're actually deeper, I would say. And they were pretty deep last year.
Yeah. Oh, they're so much deeper. I mean, bringing in Vezenkov and getting Noel, it's big, honestly. And getting Duarte. I'm going to say Duarte because the guys were making fun of me for saying Duarte. Sorry. So Duarte. They got Duarte. I mean, that's 3. Like again, there were 3. Like I'm most excited about Vezenkov or Cove. I don't know how to say it correctly yet.
It's Vezenkov.
Vezenkov.
You always say Vezenkov. I'm like, no, why would it be like, why would it be that? But Tony says names the way he says it, and I defend his right to do that.
Thank you. It's freedom of speech. So
freedom of ignorance.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, like not the biggest. I mean, I'm the most excited, like I was saying before I started questioning how to say Sasha's name. I was going to call him Sasha V.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm most excited about him. But Duarte and Noel, like 2 other guys as well with Vezenkov. I'm just
you had it. Don't hesitate. You had it.
Vezenkov.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. 3 guys new to the team. They're gonna start right off. They're not gonna start at all. They're not gonna start right off the bat. No, they're not gonna start. They're not gonna start at all. But guys who are definitely gonna help the depth, and they're there. Good pickups. Not the sexiest moves, if I can use that, but I think underrated, if anything.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But Noel, the 14th standard contract, and we're talking about depth here. There's one more standard contract spot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's a glaring, I guess, not hole, but spot that they could fill at a particular position? Do you think that that's the 3rd point guard?
I mean, you think it kind of has to be, right? Who else, right? Unless you want Keon Ellis to be that. Well, I mean, he's on the 2-way, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, he can still technically be the 3rd point guard if you want. But I mean, you kind of want him in the G League at that point. I mean, that you have 3 guys at every position now, right? So it makes sense. You don't really have that backup, that 3rd string point guard at the moment. So it makes the most sense, right?
Yeah. But it's like, I don't know. I mean, like the options in terms of going out and bringing in a 3rd point guard would be like Raul Neto or Ish Smith, I think are both still available. Which, I mean, in terms of a 3rd point guard, that would make some sense. I think Neto would be a little better in terms of having to provide spot minutes, but Ish Smith kind of gives you that veteran presence. He used the former fastest player in the league with the current fastest player in the league. I remember when John Wall got bought out, everybody's like, bring John Wall in to be your backup point guard. Why? I don't understand. What are you talking about? But I kind of like the idea that it's like, we'll think about their speed together. I'm like, okay, well, now you're kind of saying something interesting. But yeah, I don't know. And then of course there's that whole concept of kind of doing it by committee. The Kings could totally do it by committee. Malik Monk, some people could maybe make the argument that he was the backup point guard. I mean, obviously he wasn't, but he did handle the ball far more than Davion Mitchell did. And that's kind of how you want it to be, considering Monk's talents there. You have Colby Jones kind of handled the ball a lot. Obviously he's not a point guard, but if you're talking about a committee situation, that's another name that can handle the ball. We're talking about situations where they want Keegan Murray to have a bigger role in terms of being able to create with the ball in his hands, or at least start orienting him towards that. And then, I think there are various points in the season where you saw like Herter get 4, 5, 6 assists just randomly. Not saying that he's a point guard, of course, but it's just like, again, that committee, guys that can bring the ball up and get things going. And then of course you have Sabonis. I mean, you could argue that your main, it's not an argument. It just is. Your main facilitator is your center, which might change the conventional standards of how many point guards you need on the team. Mm-hmm. So this is my long-winded way of saying I really don't know. They could use the 15th spot. They might not use it at all. They might use it to bring in a guy that plays on the wing, further depth there where they never had depth before, or get another center or something like that. It doesn't have to be a third point guard. It just seems like it would make so much more sense. But also it makes sense that they would bypass, again, going for those conventional standards. So a big question mark there. Interesting. A little bit of intrigue here in late July.
Yeah, a little bit, if you want to call it. 15th spot's, again, and not a spot I'd care too much about. Not saying it's not important. I really like Delhi at that 15th spot last season. But then you bring up like Neto and Smith and stuff like that. It's like, I mean, yeah, but are they going to want to be third-string point guards at this point? Like,
I think if I could answer that question, I think Ish Smith, he's not going to be a backup point guard anywhere at his age. And then Raul Neto, I think the reason he hasn't been signed yet is he's trying to get a rotational role, I think. That's my suspicion. Because he played pretty well, kind of having to get minutes for Cleveland last season. And I think he and probably his agent are under the belief that he can get a payout for more. So maybe he's in talks with the Kings, or the Kings have called him up and he's like, we're exploring the market for a bigger role. So I don't know, maybe in a couple of weeks he might lose hope on that. Again, that's all speculation.
No, we're quoting you. John said this. Just let us know in the comments if John's wrong or not. He usually is. We're going to have to let you go.
On the podcast.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But I mean, now transitioning again, I mean, there's an extra standard contract spot. There's also an extra two-way contract spot. Maybe you kind of kill two birds with one stone. A lot of people, I mean, again, we're at a point where conversations are not abounding in terms of topics, but one of the things that people are talking about since Summer League and during Summer League and after Summer League, all that stuff, is the local kid, Jordan Ford. I think it was a couple of days ago, Jason Anderson wrote a piece for the Sac B kind of analyzing the roster as it stands now. I think he kind of posited that there's a chance that with that open two-way contract spot that Ford might have one of the more prominent opportunities to fill that contract spot. But I mean, I don't know. Jordan Ford's a great story. I think he's a crafty player, very good, but he's 6'1", 175 pounds, not blowing by people, not explosive. He's really, it's always like everybody says in sports, especially basketball, when a guy's crafty, that's a nice way of saying they're not exceptionally athletic or special in any certain way. Mm. They really, crafty means what it means. You're kind of, you're getting creative with what is at your disposal, which may not be much. And that's not this. I mean, the guy scored 14 points per game in Stockton last season. I think he shot 40% from three. He's a good scoring point guard, can drive and penetrate the defense and all that stuff. But it's doing that in the G League and Summer League is one thing. But a guy at that stature with his skill set, I don't know if he's going to be making a huge dent in the NBA. And he's been a pro for 3 years now? 2 or 3 years.
Has it? I really don't know too much about him.
The first two professional seasons with the Clippers G League squad, and then he was with Stockton last season. But yeah, I don't know. The only time he ever got invited to camp, I think, was as an undrafted rookie with the Clippers. So I don't know. That just seems that the thing that I get wary of is is that just, are we just leaning into this because it's a good story, or is it like, is that really an option? And if it's an option, that seems pretty bleak. I mean, like, no offense to Jordan Ford, but we're talking about this team having great depth and everything like that. That would be probably the most underwhelming move in terms of depth.
Yeah, it feels more like a feel good story. I mean, he's from Folsom High, local kid. He played well in the summer league, but I mean, at the end of the day, he's not an NBA player. And I mean, I don't know. He could prove us wrong. Look at Isaiah Thomas at 5'9", a little bigger, I think, probably than 175, or at least stronger looking. But I don't know. It just seems like something people want to get their hopes up over, and it does feel good. It's like, of course, you're rooting for the Sacramento boys to play for the Kings, but like, it just kind of seems like a waste of a spot for a guy who probably will never play at the NBA level. Still rooting for him, but I think at this point, it still seems like a waste. Sorry, Jordan.
I'll reserve the word waste for you to use, but the third point guard, you really just want stability. Like, that's what made Delly so great. Now, obviously, he hit like that 3 in Charlotte, and he hit a couple other big shots here and there, but it's like his main thing, stability, both on and off the floor. So I don't know. There's a 23 or 24, 25-year-old Jordan Ford who's, I don't think, ever played an NBA game. Is that going to give you that stability, that kind of veteran presence? Of course not.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It'd be interesting. I think you'd be better off not having just having 14 guys on the standard roster and bypassing the conventional standards of a third point guard at that point. Because, like I said, I'm not going to use the word waste, but that if Jordan Ford, or that's why the committee thing seems so realistic, because you're talking about like maybe Keon Ellison. Maybe they signed Jordan Ford to a 2-way contract. Well, like 2-ways can play a maximum of 35 games with the NBA squad, I think.
Oh, really? I honestly had no idea.
Yeah, I think they can only play 30 or 35 games. It's less than half the season. They can only can appear in that many games. So, like, I forgot exactly where I was going with that, but I think where I was going with that was essentially like, if you have that just kind of, not banking on the idea that anybody's going to miss substantial time. Like, you're going to lose Davion Mitchell or De'Aaron Fox for like 3/4 of the season. So with, barring that, you do okay with the committee thing, maybe having a couple guys on 2-way contracts to kind of fill in maybe. And then if something were to happen, then you actually try to go out and get a guy. But again, kind of just a big question mark, something to consider, right?
Yeah, sorry. I was trying to unmute myself. No, just not gonna. I'm gonna ignore you. Yeah, I mean, it is something to consider, really.
Yeah. Here in late July.
Yeah, it's the most interesting time of the season, or the off season. Late July. Yeah, and August is the best month of the basketball season. Everybody knows that. Yeah, of course.
August into early September.
There's just so much going on. When does training camp start?
It's usually like the last week of September.
So we got like
we have like 2 months.
Yeah, we got a second to.
So soak this episode up, folks.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the most interesting it's gonna get for a little.
Well, we're gonna make it interesting in August and early September for you. I'm sure we'll try, but kind of sticking with the 2-way contract. We don't have to linger too much on this, but I think it's fair to give this guy some credit, because we gave credit to Alex O'Connell after the second California Classic game that came in.
I know, it was like our last podcast.
9 points in like 8 minutes. Dude, keep an eye on him, man. Scoring spark. Well, forget that. He had a kind of a rough go. I think in the last game against the Bucks, I think he whiffed like 2 dunks and a layup, like in the span of a few minutes. It's just like, oh. You feel bad for the guy, because he's got a lot of shooting talent and he's got a lot of springiness to him, but it's like, you can tell when a guy's trying a little too hard. And you're like, come on, man. Come on. I want to see you do well. You don't need to blow us out of the water. But a guy that was kind of blowing people out of the water was Mike Daum, the 8th highest scoring player in NCAA basketball history.
That's crazy.
Yes. I think it was the last, I forget off the top of my head. I think it was the last 3 or 4 seasons overseas in Europe. I think he played in Italy and then Spain, or Spain then Italy. But Mike Daum, I think one of the things that was interesting about Mike Dom is you kind of just think of him as just being like a floor spacer, just a 3-point shooter. And he's got a nice stroke, really good 3-point shooter. A lot of the ones he made were just wetter than the ocean. And, there's that. But the thing that kind of made it interesting, the thing that kind of like, I'll start off by saying this. Do I think he's going to get a 2-way contract at his age, at his stage of his professional basketball career? No, I don't think he would get a 2-way contract. You don't give 2-way contracts to a guy like that. At least I don't think. I mean, if you're going to give a 2-way contract to Mike Dom, I would say screw it, give one to Kada. But the thing that's interesting about Mike Dom is he's 6'9", 230 something pounds. And if you guys know anything about the measurements of Kings players, that's about the same size as Trey Lyles. Now, Mike Dom didn't like dominate guys boxing people out. He didn't, kind of battle with guys on the glass like Trey Lyles does. He's obviously not as strong as him, but it was at least an interesting type of thing because it's like Mike Dom, 3-point shooter, that size, earnest rebounder, and puts an effort on the glass. Kind of fits the bill of what the Kings seem to be looking for in a 4, because that kind of, obviously Vezenkov will be better, but we talk about Vezenkov. It's like, what's the great thing about him? He's a shooter. He's a good, willing rebounder. It's like, kind of sounds like Trey Lyles. And then you just kind of keep going down the line. I don't know. It just sounds like the perfect idea of a power forward in the Kings' eyes. Not to say that the Kings are going to go ahead and give Mike Dom any kind of a contract necessarily, but I thought it was worth mentioning. If we were going to give Alex O'Connell some love last time, I think we should give Mike Dom some love.
Yeah, I mean, totally fair. He was,
what do they call him? The Dominator?
I love that. It's almost as good as the Nerlens Wall. No, I mean, he played great in Summer League. Fun to watch. This guy, yeah, I mean, he's a guy who seems like he would fit the Kings' like game plan with his shooting ability, kind of like the reason we're giving Alex O'Connell love. Just seems unrealistic, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, he played well. I mean, he deserves this attention, right?
Yeah. And I think the extent of that attention will end here, but he deserved it nonetheless. I think, kind of here in our late July mode, I think we got about one more topic to go through here, Tony. And it's one of our favorite people to talk about, Keegan Murray.
Keegan Murray, dude.
Yeah, if anybody got a new cat out there and they need to name their cat, Keegan Murray.
Yeah.
He's going to be on the USA basketball select team, which means he'll train against the USA national team. But also, it'll do two things. On top of already being a good experience for him, it might expand into an even better experience. He is going to put himself in a position to showcase what he can do for future international competitions, which I think should be good because on this select team, like he's on there with Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Jalen Green, Quentin Grimes, Herbert Jones, Trey Murphy, Peyton Pritchard, Naz Reid, Langston Galloway, John Jenkins, and Eric Mika. You could maybe make the argument that Keegan Murray is the standout player this year.
Eric Mika, he was on the Kings for a second. He was like a two-way guy that they would bring up from the G League when they needed a center.
Well, good for him.
Yeah, I forgot about that guy.
Do you know who John Jenkins is?
I don't. I don't. I remember Langston Galloway, though.
Yeah, it's like you go Peyton Pritchard, Naz Reid, like, all right, that's pretty good. Like Langston Galloway, like, okay.
I remember Langston Galloway was on the Kings for like half a season when we made that trade for Cousins. He came over in that Cousins trade. And I was like, whatever. It was Langston Galloway. And I remember like 2 years later, I was like working. And you see this guy come up. And I worked at a grocery store. And he had a Kings jersey on. And he was like number 9 on the Kings. I'm like, what? Like, who is this? And then I like see him walk away. And I was like, I'm a big Kings fan, obviously. So I'm like, number 9 on the Kings, who is this? And it wasn't like Rondo or anyone. And so I'm like, what the heck? And he like starts walking away. So I see the back of his jersey. It's a Galloway. I'm like, who bought a Langston Galloway Kings jersey? Hey, why? I need to know. I had so many questions for that guy. I'm like, really? Galloway? Like he wasn't like he was obviously gonna leave after that season. He was like a free agent. It was basically there for the trade. And I was like, really?
Yeah, it is kind of.
I need to know why.
It's not like having like a Jimmer jersey.
No.
Where it's like, well, he was at least drafted and there was some amount of excitement and anticipation.
Yeah. it was so funny.
That is funny. That is kind of random.
Yeah. But
my
yes.
point is that Keegan Murray amongst these names is he might be the top player among them. I mean, I think, Jalen Williams, Jalen Green, Cade Cunningham hasn't played enough to do that. But I mean, I would make the argument that Keegan Murray might be the feature player based on what he did last season. So not only is that going to put him in a position to maybe be on the national team in the near future, but if there's an injury or somebody needs to miss time or something like that, Keegan Murray is, because the select team is going to be the pool of players that could be injury replacements. And I think when Team USA performed in Tokyo for the Olympics, Bradley Beal was out with COVID. I don't know how much that'll be. So that kind of lessens the chances of, injury replacements. But Keldon Johnson took over, and Keldon Johnson got to play on the national team. So, I mean, Keegan Murray.
Yeah, I mean,
that would be great.
That'd be awesome.
And that'd be kind of cool. I mean, like we always talk about how the Kings brand is building. I think that would be really, really big. And I think in terms of really kind of setting that spark under what we think of as an inevitability, but of course is an inevitable, but seems like a near certainty that Keegan Murray is going to ascend and become the Kings' solid, like entrench himself as the Kings' third best player, kind of maybe the third star. So talk about that journey. This could be huge. It could be pivotal in reaching that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the reason I see why he played in California Classic, and of course it has more implications being for the U.S. team and maybe playing there in the future. But looking at it for this season alone, he played 2 games in the California Classic to build his confidence going into next season, having the ball a lot more in his hands, trying to develop that part of his game and creating his own shot. And now he's like, still trying to work on himself, and he's like, oh, you know what? I'm going to play with the U.S. national team. Yeah, it's like, the U.S. national team, or what's it called exactly? I guess it is that. But, maybe it's not as big as names as it has been in years past, but it still has really good players on it. I mean, when you play with some of the league's best, you're going to get better by learning from them and adjusting your game to, guard them or be guarded by them. And so, I mean, it's going to be great for his development. I think De'Aaron Fox was on this team several years ago as well. And I mean, look how he turned out. I'm pretty sure he was on the select team.
I think Steph Curry, I think Klay Thompson all started out doing that. Like a lot of good players have started out doing this. But I think I like what you're saying there. I mean, it's one thing to build up your confidence, show what you got, test out what you got against summer league talent. But going in to train and basically practice against the World Cup team, the national team, that's going to be just massive in terms of that development, like you said.
Yeah.
So this is a big thing for Keegan Murray. It almost seems like by the Kings running it back, as it were, by not having like massive seismic level moves, it kind of just it's almost like the offseason of Keegan Murray.
It really is. I mean,
because you talk about like the additions to the team or the improvement of the team. The improvement of the team might be contingent on what Keegan Murray does.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I mean, you really know what you're going to get from everyone. Maybe not Herter, based on his conditioning, but it's like everyone else. It's like you kind of know what you're going to get, and especially from like the main rotational guys and starters. You know what they're going to bring to the table. It's like Murray. He's the guy that was a rookie last year, obviously, with big expectations on him, and so. I mean, it really is going to be dependent on him, not solely. I mean, of course, they can do well even if he performs at a mediocre level. But, I mean, a lot of weight's falling on this kid right now, and hopefully he's taking it well. And it seems like he's doing what he needs to get better, too, which is maybe just raising our excitement and building the pressure, which is good. We're not just like putting this all on him. He's like, well, I haven't done anything. He's making the strides to try to get better. So, I mean, he's just building the hype, really. And hopefully it pays off. And I think it can. I mean, high character guy, someone who's putting in the work.
Even if Keegan Murray plateaus to be a 200 3-pointers made guy every season.
Yeah.
That's something to fall back on. So I'm not too worried about pressure, right? I don't think you are.
No, not really. But sophomore slumps do exist. Maybe not so much in the NBA. maybe that's kind of like a baseball thing, I feel like.
No, it's fair because if the success of your rookie season leaned massively on made 3-point shots, it's a make or miss league.
Yep.
You could miss, a couple more of those, and who knows?
Yeah. So,
but as of now, things look good. Sounds good.
Yeah, it's exciting. We'll probably be talking about Keegan Murray a lot more this offseason. Like he's the hot topic of the offseason, and he's doing a lot to make us excited and be that hot topic.
Keep it up, Keegan.
Keep it up, Keegan. On this week's episode of Keeping Up with Keegan, Tony and John discuss Keegan Murray and the USA Select Team.
Here we are.
Let's go. But yeah, that about covers all we got to talk about today, and maybe the next 2 months, I swear. But stuff will come up. We will do more podcasts before the season starts.
Of course. Bi-weekly, probably, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. So, as always, we appreciate your support, and we're just kind of letting you know our schedule, just so you're not disappointed if you don't see a Cap City Crown podcast one week. Sac King's Talk podcast, I guess is what it's called, by Cap City Crown. But yeah.
In the meantime, we're still doing other analysis, putting stuff out on the website and stuff on the YouTube channel. So even if it's not necessarily the King's Talk podcast, you'll be able to get a lot more content from us.
Yes, exactly. So if that's it, John, do you have anything to add before I sign us off?
No, I don't think we need to talk about Mike Dom any further. The real highlight of the offseason.
Yeah, but cool. Well, that's it. I want to thank you all for tuning in. And until next time, have a good one.